Okay, Joaquin, we're good to go.
Thank you, Gretchen. It is 6:03 p.m. on this September 10th, 2025, and I bring a general meeting of Human Rights Commission to order. And just really like to welcome you all to this meeting. We have, is it four commissioners that are new, Gretchen?
We actually have five new.
Five.
Let's see. Not all are with us, but we have five new appointed members.
Well, I'm grateful to all of you for volunteering your time and service to the city now and always, and look forward to getting to work with you all in the months and ahead. You've joined a wonderful volunteer body of folks who are, as you likely well know, truly interested in making Salem a more welcoming place for folks and the greater Mid-Willamette Valley a more welcoming place for folks. And hopefully you'll find your time here useful and impactful and meaningful. And I'm here, of course, to answer any questions as chair of the commission, should you have any time. And look forward to, as I said, getting to know you all and working with you. I think this is also our first general commission meeting where we have, I don't know if they're here, Gretchen, but we have two interns. Is that correct?
That is correct. And Caitlin is with us in person, so can be a part of our introductions. And I don't see Chloe yet, but Chloe might be joining us.
Well, I just really want to welcome Caitlin and Chloe to this body as well. This is maybe not the inaugural cohort of interns, but certainly the first in my 4 years here. And so I just want to welcome you and thank you also for your service to the commission, to the city. It's going to be a great boon to our work during our limited time together. And so we always do this, but maybe let's spend a little bit more time doing this. If you all can introduce yourselves, maybe your relationship to the commission, how long you've been on the commission, perhaps, so that we all can get acquainted. And I'll get started. So my name is Joaquin, and I am the chair of this commission. I've been chair for I don't know how long now. Kelsey, how long have I been chair? A year, maybe? Uh, Less, more?
10 months.
10
months-ish.
months. And I've been on the commission for about 4 years, maybe just shy of. And I lived for a long time in West Salem, but I just moved to South Salem, and so um, anyways, it's good. It's good to be here with you all. Let's start in person first, if we could, and then come back over to Zoom. And our Vice Chair Marshall, Robert Marshall, can get us started.
Yes, thank you, Joaquin. Good evening, everybody. My name is Robert Marshall. I am the Vice Chair of the Human Rights Commission. I've been on the Human Rights Commission, I believe, for like 2.5 years. I've been in the Vice Chair role for 10 months, and I will pass off to my left.
Hi, everyone. My name's Cara Watson. I've been on the commission for about 5 minutes, and yeah, so I'm one of the new members. I'm really looking forward to working with you all. And what was the other question? Is that about it? Yeah. All right. Thank you. Nice to meet you guys.
Good evening. This is Gretchen Bennett, and I'm the staff liaison to the commission. Use she, her pronouns. And if anyone in the audience would like to introduce themselves, you'd be welcome to come up to the microphone at the table in the center of the room, but please don't feel any obligation.
There were no takers, so we'll go back to Zoom, and I will pass it off to Commissioner Murray.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kelsey Murray. I use she, her pronouns. I am a commissioner on this commission. I've been on the commission for about 4.5 years now, which is wild. I used to be vice chair and then chair of the LGBTQI plus committee, but I'm excited to be here and I'm excited to see so many new faces. I will pass it to Commissioner Moss.
Hi, all. I am Moss Lynn. I use they, them pronouns. I've been a part of the commission for about 2.5 years now. So I think that some people might be underestimating their time. I have chaired a process and procedures task force, and I have been a part of our community engagement committee, and am a part of the LGBTQIA plus committee. And I am also just thrilled to see all the other new faces in the room. And I will pass it to Commissioner Christina.
Hi, I'm Christina Ballard. I live in Ward 7, she, her pronouns. I am a commissioner. I also serve on the Disability Rights Task Force and the Community Engagement Committee. I have been on the commission for about 10 months, and I will pass it to Commissioner Pressey.
Hi, everybody. My name is Commissioner. Well, my name is not Commissioner. My name is Kira Pressey. I am a commissioner on this commission. My pronouns are she, her. I live in Ward 5. I'm currently dying. Sorry. Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad to see all the new faces. So I will pass off to Commissioner Jackie.
Hello, my name is Jackie Roche. It's as well 5 minutes as a commissioner. So that's all I have. I don't know what else to say. So I am going to pass it off to one of my friends, Kirsty.
Hi guys, my name is Kirsty Urdich. I'm a commissioner on this commission for I think also about 10 months. Still rocking and rolling, love to see the new faces and glad everyone's here. I think Joaquin, you're the last one. Yeah.
I went to the top of the meeting, but I appreciate the handoff. Thank you. Yeah, well, just you kind of got a flavor for those of you who are new about some of the ecosystem we stepped into, where we have this general commission and then we have committees and task force that are more specialized and do other sorts of work. Kira failed to mention, but she chairs the LGBTQIA+ committee, which is one of our standing committees that focuses on queer issues in Salem in particular, organizes things like Trans Day of Remembrance every year, as well as some upcoming health forums and other outreach to the queer community. We have a community engagement committee, which I used to chair before becoming chair of the commission, and that takes on a lot of our kind of general community engagement, but primarily what it does is it oversees the development of one of our big projects, annual projects, which is our community belonging survey, where we get a really robust sample of folks in Salem and hear from them directly about their experiences of belonging and discrimination in Salem. And that itself goes on to scaffold our work throughout the year. And Moss had mentioned, a task force, which is a kind of a short-term body that they had chaired earlier this year about rules and procedures, kind of informs our work going forward. And we have another short-term body, a task force focused on disability rights in Salem, which has been active since the spring and which will wrap up at the end of the year, and produce recommendations to this commission and to City Council about access and disability justice in Salem. And so if those things are of interest to you, any commissioners and all commissioners are welcome to join those and to really get into some of these particular issues that we want to work on that maybe can't be accommodated by our time together monthly. And so you'll hear about all of them and some of the things that I mentioned here over the course of our meeting in our agenda item 5 at the bottom of the meeting. So anyways, that's a long preamble, which for those of you who don't know me, you should get accustomed to. Do we have any public comment, Gretchen, either in person or received?
Joaquin, thank you. I'm not aware of any public comment unless anyone is wishing in the room to speak. Okay, no in the room public comment, but we do have one in writing that was sent out via email to the commission just today. And if you like, I can read that for you, or if that would be helpful, or if the commission's seen it.
This is Mr. Coyne's appeal, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, maybe for all of our edification, if you don't mind giving us either a synopsis or maybe reading. I think it wasn't very long.
You bet. I'd be happy
Thank
to.
you.
From Lee Coyne here in the community, thank you for this opportunity. Fruitful idea for which I ask only for your vote of confidence and informal advice on its implementation. This calls for having Susan B. Anthony Day to celebrate women's rights in Oregon. That falls on her birthday of February 15th. Ms. Anthony spoke out at the Reed Opera House along with Give Good and convinced male voters to allow women to vote in state elections. We're one of the first states west of the Mississippi to be so enlightened. Let that be our springboard. With your blessing, I am prepared to create a coalition to develop this idea further. A panel of women's success stories in the workplace has been suggested. The more recent legislative strided would be included. Audience W and S is the probable final round. Mayor Hoy could be the invited MC. Lauk Auditorium is the likely venue. Women's rights needs new momentum. This is our golden opportunity. Please lend your support. And that concludes the public comment.
Thank you, Gretchen, for reading that. Yeah, go ahead, Kira, please.
Thanks so much, Chair Laura Midkiff. I just wanted to say, thank you so much for sharing the idea and for the passion around celebrating women's rights. But I do think that I think it's really important that we recognize the people who paved the way. But I do want to acknowledge that Susan B. Anthony's legacy is very complicated. Much of her work was centered around white women, while leaving women of color out of the fight for voting rights. And for me, I think it's really important that when we look at ways to honor history, we're including the stories of women who contributed, but who were also women of color. And there are several women of color and Indigenous women who fought for equal rights. And I'd love to see us highlight those voices as part of any effort we move forward with. Great examples would be Hattie Redmond, Lizzie Weeks, Mary Beatty. And there's a website too that is women.ca.gov that's women of color and the fight for women's suffrage that kind of really delves into this. Might be a good resource. I am not discrediting that Susan B. Anthony made strides by any means, but it is controversial, or complicated, shall I say.
Thank you, Commissioner Pressey. Commissioner Land.
I would agree with what was just said, and I would also add that I'm not sure if there's precedent of the commission taking on a event like that. I believe that that's the request of this email, is that we would host the event and let them take the lead on it. And I'm not sure that that's something we would want to set a precedent for. As a commission and as someone who's been involved with a couple events we've planned, we take a lot of time internally to plan those, and it's also a lot of time for Gretchen to be a part of them. And I think that we have to be really careful in how we dedicate that time. So I'm just not sure if someone else wants to host a private event, or public event, they are absolutely welcome to. And I would encourage this person to do that. I just don't think it's something that we should take on, because it would just be a very time-consuming effort.
Thank you, Commissioner Land. Any other thoughts or reactions? Well, so this is we don't get a lot of requests like this. Mr. Coyne's request was kind of advise and consent, for lack of a better term. I'm wondering, Gretchen, my instinct, I think I share with Commissioner Lynn and Commissioner Pressey, which is maybe to let others take this on if they want to. But if Mr. Coyne is interested in the Commission's feedback or reaction, I think he just got it. And if he'd like that in writing or in some kind of more formal capacity, I'd be happy to pass that along. Obviously we want to celebrate folks and their contributions to American history, and even within the context of their own time, which we recognize is different from the ones that we inhabit. And Commissioner Pressey made a good point about Susan B. Anthony's complicated history on race. It started out as an abolitionist in her teens and worked for universal suffrage for women. And then by the passage of the 15th Amendment in the 1870s, had really migrated in her views. And I think that is an important part of her legacy, and we have to kind of tackle the whole legacy that there is to be acknowledged. And so happy to share resources, community leaders like Mr. Coyne, and proceed that way if you think that's best, Gretchen.
Thank you. Yes, I'll be happy to provide follow-up back to Lee Coyne and share the recording of this conversation and some of these notes as a next step. Thank you.
Yes, Roche, Commissioner
Yeah.
Roche. Okay.
I can't find the hand raise button, so I was trying.
Yeah, that's all right. You and I are one and the same. You can say whatever you like whenever you like.
Because I'm new to this, and this is, we just received the email and I didn't know what the discussion would be. How do we move forward? Like, this has been brought up, so do we look at it, think about it, and then come back next time? Or are we supposed to give an actual answer in the moment?
Yeah, I'm trying to, this is kind of an informal request. We do receive formal requests from, say, mayor or council, which kind of start a much more formal process of voting and things of that ilk. This is a request, an informal one made in public comment. We don't have to take it up as an issue. If though, Jackie, you feel passionately about it, we can come back to it either later in the meeting or at next month and have a more robust conversation about it, make it an agenda item and take a vote. If that's something you would like, I'm very happy to entertain that, especially given that I think he mentioned that this was in February. Am I making that up? So we do have some time on this to consider it and to talk about it more if you like.
It's just a huge learning curve on how this works. And so,
yeah, I'm sorry. I should have teed that up better for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind talking about it a little bit and not just have the two people who spoke be the consensus of everyone, because I would like to do my own research on it as well before I just agree.
Absolutely. So, I don't know if we don't have this very often, so give me a second while I confer with Gretchen. But Gretchen, would this maybe require a motion rather, from Commissioner Roche, and that we can entertain and have it be come back and have it as an agenda item?
Joaquin, thank you. I don't think it would require a vote to come back as an agenda item. The agenda is set by the chair, and so I think we could take your direction to place something on an agenda for future consideration. It could also come up by an individual commission member under the member remarks section of the agenda as well. I think at any time a member could bring up something and say, hey, I was thinking about that public comment. I'd like to suggest we do more with it, and that could happen at any future meeting. So I think there's a couple of vehicles. You could vote, but I don't think it's necessary or required.
Yeah. I'm happy to have this conversation again, especially because it's been a request made by a community member, and it's not time sensitive. So happy to return to this topic in October. Does that feel good, everybody? Maybe no vote, but just kind of a consensus here. Okay. All righty. Well, thank you all for that conversation. Let me toggle back over to my agenda here. I think it's probably just member remarks and announcements. Although, are there any member remarks or announcements on non-agenda items? Go ahead, Christina.
Yeah, just real quick, if anybody's interested, the Museum of Mental Health is having an open house next Tuesday, 5 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., where we're showcasing the partners that we've been working with on various things, and you get to meet some of our board members. So if you want to stop by, please do.
Thank you. Any other comments? Do you want to tell folks where they may go, Christina? Where will they find the museum?
Oh, the Oregon State Hospital Museum of Mental Health. The address is 2600 Center Street Northeast. It's on the Oregon State Hospital campus. If you're headed out of downtown, you go in the first entrance off of Center Street, and there's parking for the museum right there.
Thank you. Anyone else on a non-agenda item? Okay. All right. Well, so this is this next section for the uninitiated is kind of a series of updates or continuance of conversations. Some of them are kind of standing items, things like a bias crime report, as well as a report of complaints of discrimination, are things that are handled by our SPD liaison, our Salem Police Department liaison, and our staff person. We haven't had SPD in a couple of months. Gretchen, do we have them tonight?
That's correct. And they do send their sincere apologies. I know in the 12 and a half years I've staffed the commission, they're usually here just every month and they apologize. It's been a series of scheduled conflicts specific to the team, but they're anticipating being able to return in person next month. And I'm prepared to share their bias crime report tonight.
Thank you.
If you're new to us, we have a liaison from the Salem Police Department who's a typical attendee at our meetings. So yeah, Joaquin, I'll go ahead. There are 5 situations that the police shared with me that they received since the last meeting. In the first situation in Southeast Salem, officers responded to a disturbance where a suspect reportedly threatened multiple people with a knife while yelling racial slurs and death threats. The suspect resisted officers during detention, was found in possession of a knife, and made additional threatening statements while in custody. The suspect was arrested, and the incident was classified as a bias crime motivated by racial prejudice. The next situation, Northeast Salem, officers responded to a reported assault between 2 agricultural coworkers. One individual sustained a facial injury and reported being struck multiple times. The other party stated the conflict stemmed from ongoing harassment at the workplace, not in Salem, including repeated use of homophobic slurs and other acts of intimidation. During follow-up interviews, the suspect of the assault alleged he'd been targeted with slurs on a near daily basis and described prior incidents of physical aggression toward him. There was an arrest for the assault, and the bias incident element remains under investigation. A third situation, Southeast Salem, officers responded to a disturbance between juveniles involving the use of racial slurs and a BB airsoft gun. 2 juveniles reported being repeatedly subjected to derogatory racial language by another juvenile who then discharged the BB gun, striking one of them and leaving a minor injury. The involved juvenile was referred to the Marion County Juvenile Department for review, and the incident was routed to this group for documentation. Another situation, Northeast, officers responded to a reported assault between neighbors in an apartment complex. During a verbal dispute, one male headbutted another while making comments about immigration status. The victim sustained minor injuries, and witness video confirmed the victim's account of what took place. The suspect was cited for harassment and bias crime too. Last situation, Northeast, a victim reported being approached by 2 unknown suspects while walking downtown. One suspect used a racial slur before pulling an object from a backpack in a manner the victim believed resembled drawing a firearm, though no weapon was seen. The suspects fled and were not located. Officers checked the area for evidence but found none. The victim was provided case information and bias reporting resources, and at this time is inactivated pending discovery of further leads. And so that represents the 5 situations that came into the police department.
Thank you, Gretchen. Those are difficult, and we value the update. For those who, again, are new, you may be asking yourself, well, what do we do with these reports, and how do we process them? And it may merit a slight segue or a slight aside to talk a little bit about, one, what a bias crime is, and two, what we do with them when we hear about them. So again, these are disseminated monthly to the commission by way of this report. Again, often by, or most always by, an SPD uniformed officer. First of all, a bias crime is a crime whose origins or intentions can be assigned to prejudice or bias, and on the basis of a protected class, which in Salem runs the gambit of all the things you likely can imagine, like race and national origin, sexual orientation, age, etc. It also includes disability. It also includes housing status, which in Salem is one of the few cities in the country to include that as part of their protected classes. And we really are distinctive in that way. And that recommendation, which was an adopted change to the city revised code, Salem revised code by the city council, was originated here in this body a couple of years ago. So it's an important part of our history and impact on the community, and it relates to our everyday work here as well. And I mentioned that the motivation, the need to establish motivation and intention, because there may be a victim of a crime in Salem that belongs to a protected class, but for which we cannot assign motive on the basis of protected class of that crime, and therefore doesn't merit the distinction of a bias crime or a bias incident. So in other words, it isn't sufficient to be a wheelchair user and a victim of a crime, or to be Black and a victim of a crime, or to be whatever you can imagine. There has to be that intent component. That's an essential part of meriting that distinction. A crime versus an incident. Incidents are occurrences that are noteworthy but maybe not criminal, and then crimes, of course, rise to merit that distinction of criminal activity, and are adjudicated to the full extent of the law as such. Any questions about that nuance? So the second part of this conversation is, what do we do with these? And kind of briefly, that kind of opens up another conversation about generally how we process information. And so, we are advisory to council and to mayor. We don't adopt policy for the city as such, but we do originate it. We can make recommendations. We provide information and reports to council. But at the heart of what we do, in my opinion, you don't have to share it, is that our staff, namely Gretchen, really do the day-to-day work of the commission and to the spirit of the commission, which is anyone in Salem who encounters bias or hostility or is suspicious of experiencing those things, or suspects that they have experienced those things, or just really wants to voice concerns, can pick up a phone, can walk into the office and talk to Gretchen Bennett. And that's a remarkable feature of Salem government. That is not a common thing in city governments and municipal governments in Oregon, or really outside of Oregon. And what we do through Gretchen and the people that she works with is have a direct engagement with the public. And Gretchen will often sit with folks and find remediation if it's to be found, to direct them to resources and to recourse should it be found, and really serves as an indispensable bridge in our community for folks to find restitution and justice, should those avenues be available to them. And she's in a religious sense, a true saint. I mean, she really does this, and it really is wonderful, a wonderful service to our community. And so that's really the HRC arm of things. And then there is the SPD side of things, the police department side of things, when they are called, as Gretchen just enumerated 5 times last month, to a scene and respond to criminal activity or potential criminal activity, and they interface with the public And they are another way in which the city of Salem interfaces with the public when it comes to these issues of discrimination. And they have their process, which is separate from ours. And we try to the best of our ability as a commission to take as many inputs as possible, either things that we get directly as a commission in the form of public comment, or things that we get directly as a commission in the form of Gretchen, or indirectly through SPD. And so we take this information and we try, if we can, to do something about it. And sometimes that's not, oh, we can fix this one thing right away, a month after it happens, we first hear about it. Sometimes it can be over the course of a year where we kind of collate information and we adopt recommendations and we make things. And that can feel uncomfortable, and that can feel inadequate, because people suffer or experience slights in Salem, and deserve to feel belonging and to feel agency in the city. And what we do may at times feel insufficient. I know I have felt those feelings from time to time, but we move slowly and in some, after we receive information like the one that we have received, trusting and encouraging and keeping people accountable that we work with to do their jobs on a day-to-day level, on an everyday basis, to making sure that folks in Salem are served in the way that they can, served by their city, whether it's Gretchen or someone else. And so that's, in my view, how we treat these sort of reports. Are there any questions about that? And I will say, kind of by way of rounding out this component of it, this is an important part of really understanding on a personal level things that we hear elsewhere in the community. Where a lot of us are out into the community and attend or on other boards or commissions or attend public venues. We have this community belonging survey where we hear from hundreds of people, and all of that is important and valuable. And these are real stories that we hear about that really, not names to faces because we don't know their identities, but who really paint a picture and contour life in Salem that way that really is valuable to us. And so, and then hopefully the work that comes from these reports is valuable to the public in turn. All right. Again, not known for my brevity. Any questions about that? Or any additions that people would like to make either to the bias crime definition or to this long monologue? Go ahead, Commissioner Lynn.
Yeah, so I'd also like to add that another part of what we do is when the sergeant does attend, we also serve as a point of exposure for the sergeant and for the public to know that this is a space where we can talk about these issues. And the sergeant also sits through our discussions and maybe gets a perspective that they aren't receiving within the precinct, that they're able to bring back with them. And then I also wanted to point out something that could just be me misremembering, but it feels like there's been a steady increase in the number of reports we've had either through the police or through Gretchen's report with racial slurs and specifically focusing on immigration status. And I just want to vocalize that, as I've seen tensions rising within our city, and I think that we need to call that out when we see it. And we need to say it as a flag to ourselves and to the city as something that we need to work on, because the issues are getting worse and the livability for everyone in our city is getting worse based on these tensions. So just wanted to call some attention to that.
Thank you, Commissioner Lynn. That's a valuable reminder. I think another thing to think of is, who are we not hearing from it? What experience is not being captured in these reports from SPD? And it's one couple issues that we grapple with a lot as a commission is, what is the role of policing in community service, and how do we leverage that or inform that and make them as kind of accessible as possible, or not, or when are they maybe not best deployed, and how do we gauge people's comfort in Salem around engaging police and reporting bias crimes to the police, because we know that there's a discrepancy between people's experiences of discrimination and what is being reported either to us or to the police department, especially probably maybe never more egregiously than with folks experiencing houselessness, where they report experiencing discrimination on a weekly or daily basis, and yet seldomly report it to the police department. There's a lot of reasons for that, and I think one part of our role is to promote education and conciliation in the community, and that takes many forms, which we can get into it at a later date. But kind of really wading through those issues is also an important part of what we do, and a lot of that is informed by these reports and how we engage with them and think about them. Anything else from anybody else? Okay. Gretchen, I think I'm back to you for complaints of discrimination.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for the thoughtful discussion and your kind words. And I'll just make mention, we also see significant lack of reporting by people experiencing homelessness to the Human Rights Commission as well. That's something I think we're hoping to look at more carefully in the coming months, coming out of the belonging survey and with our new intern that's going to focus in on the complaints process and how do we help, both with us and at PD to hear from folks. So just wanted to mention that as well. But yeah, we received 6 situations last month, and thank you so much for your kind words. And I do appreciate my other colleague that Chris Snyder, who really helped with these situations. So we had 6. In the first situation, a person reported perceiving that they were being overcharged for a service given some challenges or barriers in language access as part of it trying to receive and experience the service. And we discussed different options for ways to clarify what the costs were and how to overcome language barriers with this. This was a place of public accommodations. A second situation was around a request for accommodation to attend an event from a person with a disability out in the general public, so at a place of public accommodation, and provided some information and assistance there. In another case, a person reported housing discrimination, citing a family relationship as potentially biasing the situation. And we troubleshooted, discussed possible approaches. Another person reported an accessibility issue, recognizing a sidewalk was blocked due to construction fencing and they weren't able to traverse the sidewalk. So we addressed that issue. Another person reported noticing both sexual orientation and racist graffiti in a public place. So noted that to folks that can address that. And last situation related to reporting a need for improved access for a person with a disability in a wheelchair at a park. And so working on that one too. I also owe you an update that I don't have. I remember that you were interested in hearing more about a place of public accommodation last month that had some guidance around age groups that would attend certain areas. And I failed to get that update for you. So I'll flag that for next month. But that completes the reports.
Thank you, Gretchen. As she was talking, I was just reminded of the fact that oftentimes, I don't want to speak for you, Gretchen, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems as though sometimes, at least, these sort of people walking in and calling in maybe the first time the city even hears about an issue. And so it's also an important mechanism for the public to hold their government accountable for what's going on as well.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Gretchen, you wouldn't by chance have an update about those 40-something reports that had gone missing?
Not in any written yet way, but we're making progress towards that. My colleague Chris has put them into a document, the information from those, and we're really looking forward to one of our newer interns, Caitlin, being able to put this together in the context of a year-over-year summary. Christina had asked for that a while back, and we want to be able to produce that for you. We should also have a bias crime, year over year report before too long. For those, I didn't explain that very well. For those of you who are wondering what we're talking about there, we had discovered a link was broken in one of the mechanisms for reporting a complaint or concern to the Human Rights Commission. One of the ways that people can share concerns is via an online report form. And I got a phone call from a person saying, "Hey, I didn't hear from you. I sent something in." And I was so glad they called because it led us to discover that the link had been broken and we weren't receiving the report. So I believe there were 37 stuck in that space. And so we're looking forward to bringing you a more complete picture of that information at a future meeting.
Thank you, Gretchen. I know it can be difficult to catch up with all of those and all the folks who reached out. And I think it would be valuable as you kind of make your way through them, and you already said this, but just to say it again, is to receive as some kind of summary report of all that you're learning and hearing about, especially because this could be over the course. I don't know how many years it spans, or if it's even more than 1 year, but it spans some time period that we haven't been hearing about, and that would be valuable to get. I would go so far as to say get a sense of the data from those 37 independently, and then have them and add them to the overall data over the period of which they were reported, so that we can get a sense of the actual data set. For us, that would be helpful. And maybe a task for our wonderful new intern, Caitlin, who I'm sorry to say I haven't met yet. Sorry, Caitlin, but thank you for all that you will do.
That's exactly what we have in mind. We're enlisting Caitlin's help in producing something that will be helpful to you all, and embedding it within that broader context. So kind of adding what was stuck in that link issue combined with the information that we had received to give you an accurate report. And Chris, were you saying 2 years? Yeah, it was about 2 years that it turns out that link was broken, that we were not aware. So that it'll be important to add to the complaints that you've been hearing about over the past couple of years, to add that data in.
Thank you. All right. Well, if there are no more questions or comments for Gretchen, we'll go on to item 4C, which is, I think, our last opportunity before the 22nd, which is when Vice Chair Marshall will deliver this report to City Council apropos of the Community Belonging Survey. And so we have, I don't think yet, Robert, that we have, do we, the presentation, but that's no problem and no need for that tonight. But we do have, I think, maybe our final version, or our tentative final version of the written report. And I don't know, Gretchen, if you wanted to share that with folks on the screen. And if so, while you do that, I will just give, again, as brief as I can, some background on this. I alluded to this at the top of the meeting for those that are new, which is that we have an annual community belonging survey. We've done this for, I think this is our 7th year doing it, not our 7th consecutive year, but our 7th year doing it. I think maybe our 6th consecutive year or something like that. And this is a partnership that we have with Professor Marianne Bradshaw, who is at Western Oregon University, and her graduate, I think it's leadership or management course. I can't remember now what the name of the course is, but they really provide a great service to us by partnering with us every year in the spring to develop the survey methodologically, and then help us disseminate it to the public, and then aid us in our analysis of it. It's usually in the field for a period of a week or two, maybe a little bit longer in May. We received a report on this at the end of their term, which might have been in June, if I'm not fudging the months too much. And then we've spent the summer digesting it further and preparing this report, which we will deliver, as we usually do, in late summer, early fall. It happens to be in late September this year to City Council. And the presentation has really grown in over the years, from kind of a written thing to last year when I delivered it to I think it was a 5 to 7 minute presentation with quite a bit of engagement, counselor engagement. We'll have 5 to 7 minutes again this year, and I hope also for continued robust conversation from our elected leadership and where we really get to present some of the key themes and takeaways from the survey, and to help them be more informed policymakers at the city level. I think I bought Gretchen enough time. Do you want to go ahead and share the report? It's been slimmed down from when you last saw it, everybody, and so this is a more truncated version.
Just help me remember. I was about to explain that I did not remember to put it on my thumb drive, and so I didn't think I could share it. But you're helping me remember that there's the updated version on the Google. So forgive me, one moment, that I should be able to do.
It is on the Google. It is, I know that Robert and I have access to it. I think that may be it. Or actually, it may just be me. I'm seeing now that Robert may not have access to it. Oh, I see you're on there, Gretchen. Great. Thank you. So for folks who are viewing it online or actually in person too, I suppose, because it's all on the screen, we have a summary here. It shouldn't be too divergent of what I just said to you. The issue is informational in that we're not making a policy recommendation. We're just providing information for the digestion of councilors and the mayor. Okay. The first section of substance reads very much like last year's, which is the facts and findings section. Again, who did what? Western Oregon, what was the purpose of it? To learn about discrimination witnessed by Salem residents, learn about their personal experiences, understand the comfort level of reporting bias to SPD and to the commission, which is, again, a central thing that we just talked about moments ago. To understand the level of awareness in the community about the Human Rights Commission and the community's belonging experienced by the community, feelings of community belonging, rather, experienced by the community. We mentioned that we include the definitions of these things, key terms like discrimination, bias, disability within the survey, and that it was provided online as well as in person at 4 locations. That should not be a surprise to anybody. The thing I really wanted to spend our time thinking about was the major facts and findings, which were modeled, were modeled on previous years' findings with a few added changes. So would folks like, maybe not me, as I've spoken way too much tonight, but would someone like to read through this, or let's do that so that folks who maybe listen to our meetings can also experience the content. Does anybody want to volunteer to read? Oh God, I feel like we're in a classroom. Does anybody want to read out loud the major facts and findings?
I can.
Thank you, Commissioner Roche.
Major facts and findings. 55.1% of all respondents shared that they either somewhat or strongly agree with the statement, overall, I feel a sense of community in Salem. 44.4% of people experiencing houselessness and 17.6% of Pacific Islander respondents reported that they feel like they did not belong in the Salem community. 30.3% of all respondents said they had personally experienced discrimination in Salem in the last year. That figure rockets to 82.5% among unhoused respondents, 67.6% of whom reported experiencing discrimination weekly or daily. These respondents who reported experiencing discrimination were asked to identify the nature of the discrimination. The 3 most common types of the discrimination reported were race, color, and national origin. 37.4%, age was 37.4%, and gender was 34.8%. 94.2% of respondents experiencing houselessness ascribed their experiences of discrimination to their housing status. 59.3% of respondents reported witnessing discrimination in public outdoor spaces, example, parks and streets. 48% identified businesses, banks, restaurants, shops, and healthcare settings were mentioned by 33.7% of aggregate responses. For people experiencing homelessness, PEH, the most common locations were public outdoor spaces, 82.7%, businesses, 53.8%, and public transportation, 46.2%. Can I keep going?
Please.
Okay. If you were the target of a bias crime, respondents were asked, how likely would you be to report it to the Salem Police Department? 54.6% of all respondents shared that they felt either somewhat or very likely to report a bias to the police, while 34.8% of all respondents shared that they felt either somewhat or very unlikely to report a bias to the police. However, among people experiencing homelessness, 68.2% of respondents reported that they would be somewhat or very likely to report a bias to the police. The survey was available in the community online and through in-person engagements from April 24th to May 14th, 2025. 420 respondents completed the survey. The survey was available in English, Spanish, Chuukese, and Marshallese.
All right. Thank you, Jackie, for volunteering to do that. Any reactions to that? Again, this is informational only. We're not making policy recommendations as such yet, though I anticipate, as it has in years past, that the findings in this survey will inform future policy recommendations that we do make to council. But are there any? I'd be surprised if this was the case because we've spent some months talking about this. But are there any major themes, meaning facts or findings, that folks feel ought to be represented in this report that as yet are not? Or corollary, things that could be expanded upon or detailed differently, presented differently, framed differently, that is missing or not quite right?
Well, it's my first visit here, so I'm going, raising hand.
Please.
It's my first time here, so I guess I'll shake the tree a little. I say this like in all honesty, out of love. Like, I don't, like, people all find themselves in different situations in life, and I think all of us have had a variety of experiences with a variety of different people who have different backgrounds and current living conditions. And I guess I understand the reason of this, and I think it's good. Like, it's really informative, but my curiosity is, I've experienced addiction. I have a lot of friends that have experienced addiction. I think about some of the factors or some of the responses that are given by addicts, and I just flat out, a lot of homeless are addicts. I'm not saying all, but it's widely accepted. And so it makes me curious when certain people are asked, and we don't know the story and we don't know the background. And so for some things to say, oh, I've experienced discrimination, but we don't know what that means to them. And so I guess it's a point of conversation, I guess. When I was heavy in my world, I would tell people what I wanted to tell them to be justified or to make myself feel better. And so I've experienced that by myself, for myself. So I'm just kind of curious if there's any questions or any, I don't know. I wanted to bring the topic up because to take this as complete truth, it's people's perspectives and people's perceived experiences, and not always accurate.
Yeah, that's valuable. I'll say maybe a couple of points on this before we open it up to conversation. One is, we try to be careful about not couching this language in certainty for a lot of the reasons, or at least partially for the reason that you alluded to, in that any one experience is an experience and not a without kind of more robust corroboration, a statement of fact. And so these are people's perceptions, to your point, and we try to couch it or frame them as such. And I don't think that we overstate things. The other thing I'll mention too is that we do over quota people experiencing houselessness, because we know that people experiencing houselessness are often the folks in our community in Salem who are bearing some of the biggest brunts of discrimination in Salem by population. This is a well-established trend in Oregon and in Salem in particular, as well as nationally. And so we really do want to hear from folks who are experiencing houselessness, especially because the trend is worsening. And the way that I often try to describe it is, a couple of years ago, we were maybe 5 years ago, we were hearing about instances of kind of slights and comments and a culture of being pretty having very difficult language around people experiencing houselessness, to housed people who are not homeless, urinating in public, humiliating people who are experiencing houselessness, all the way until Mr. Michaelis's death a couple of years ago, which for us, at least for me personally, I won't speak for the commission, was a very difficult moment in our community. And so we are seeing a lot of violence against people experiencing homelessness, often by people who are housed. And so we do try to go out of our way to capture those experiences, especially because those are stories and perspectives that are often occluded or not included in our kind of day-to-day public policy conversations, and certainly by our kind of average experience of Salem. And so anyway, so maybe a dual point there, Jackie, that the point is well taken, and we don't want to state these things as fact. They are a supplement to policymakers' understanding of people's experiences based on their personal experiences, people who are surveying, excuse me. And then we have, as a commission, kind of opted to highlight people's experiences of homelessness, because that's a perspective that is often not taken very seriously and or dismissed by policymakers, to the detriment of people experiencing homelessness and to the convenience of people making policy decisions. And so we try to interrupt some of those more dangerous tropes that we know exist or are out in the community. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I wanted to hear perspective on it, and I appreciate listening. I like to bring up maybe a controversial thing, because this is the stuff that a lot of us hear, and so I want to hear perspective, and so I don't mind asking those questions.
Absolutely, and good policy comes from good conversations. I appreciate it. I think, Kelsey, your hand was up first, and then Mas, you're second, so I'll go in that order.
Yes. Thank you so much, Commissioner Roche, for bringing that up. I do want to push back on the narrative that most people who are experiencing houselessness are addicts. Research shows it's about like a third. So kind of because we work so much with people who are experiencing houselessness, I want to steer away from that and like destigmatize drug use and everything. And Joaquin talked a little bit about this, in that this survey is about like people's perception and experiences. So I think like we need to acknowledge that like people's truth is their truth. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Murray. Commissioner Land, go ahead.
Yeah, as per usual, I was also thinking along the lines of what Kelsey said. And I wanted to remind the commission that addiction is a mental illness and a disability, and is absolutely something you can be discriminated against for as well. And that that's still an important perspective to have because they are our community members. And that's something that we would want to encourage that community being a part of our survey. And also just because a lot of people, I didn't know about this survey until I joined the commission. And so just to expand on the goal of it is it's really to get a community perspective, and perspectives don't always have to be fact. But it's important to see how people are perceiving the city and where they are feeling safe and where they might not be. Because even if one person's experience might not be as truthful, it could lead to a situation of more people experienced and just haven't felt open to share. So I just want to make sure that we continue to keep this survey open to all community members and to get all perspectives.
Thank you. I will say too, we try to establish continuity of questions over years so that we can track information, which is really important to us. And so, whatever can be made of an individual data point and its merits, we do like to track it over time. And so, for example, just to continue with this point, but if an overwhelming majority of people experiencing houselessness are saying something about it, one case the merits of one case is one thing, but the overall trend becomes really hard to refute or to contest. And so, and that ultimately informs and makes for, I think, better policymaking for folks. And I will say this is one of the few opportunities that we get to hear directly from folks experiencing houselessness. We have a lot of conversations in Salem and Oregon about people experiencing houselessness, but rarely do we survey them in a kind of an organized way in this way. Though, of course, the huge caveat being that people who are direct service providers are hearing from folks on the ground every day. So, and I really appreciate their work as well. I think one of the big changes that I noticed, just as kind of a comment, is people's comfort with reporting to SPD. Was really different this year than it had been in years past. With maybe the caveat being that our sample size this year was almost half of what it was last year, but still 400 people is quite a lot of people. Certainly, as government surveys go, in Salem surveys, that's a lot more than people normally do in Salem. And so, I thought that, this is the last kind of substantive bullet point and the penultimate bullet point overall here on the facts and finding, but 54.6% of all respondents share that they felt either somewhat or very likely to report a bias crime to the police, which is, I think, maybe the exact opposite of what we had encountered last year. Whereas only 34.8% of respondents said that they felt somewhat or very unlikely to report a bias crime to the police. Not unlike last year, so the same as last year, though, among people experiencing homelessness, their comfort, or the likelihood rather of reporting a bias crime to the police is negligible, with 68.2% of respondents reporting that they were somewhat or very unlikely to report a bias crime to the police. Again, speaking to barriers to reporting, which in turn become barriers to justice and restitution for folks in the community. But I thought that was a notable shift from last year's data. Well, I really appreciate that conversation. Any other questions or comments about the survey report? Well, hearing and seeing none, this report will be, thank you, Gretchen, for sharing the screen. This report will be included alongside the survey itself and the Western Oregon University students' written and visual presentation to this body, to the commission, and as in years past, kind of the catch-all data that Professor Marianne Bradshaw shares with us every year, where we hear and can read kind of granularly people's experiences, as well as the free-form responses that people so generously provide the commission, attesting to their experiences as well for the reading benefit of counselors Gretchen, am I missing anything?
Thank you. I think the only thing I'd add is just that everyone's welcome to attend. So this will be on the City Council agenda on Monday, September 22nd. And our Vice Chair, Robert Marshall, will be presenting it. It'll be under the presentations agenda item. That particular meeting begins at 6 with our Housing Authority meeting and then our Urban Renewal meeting, and then rolls into the City Council meeting. So it's a little tough to predict exactly what time this will happen, but you're welcome to come and be there if you like. And we're going to be at Laux Auditorium at Salem Public Library.
And I just want to appreciate Robert Marshall, our vice chair, for giving the presentation. I had very much wished to give it, but I will be stuck in San Francisco, unable to come give it myself in person. And I do apologize for that. But anyways, grateful for him for stepping in and doing that on our behalf, and of mine in particular. So go please support him. Diane, welcome, first of all.
Hi, thank you. I was just curious of these surveys. Are they like broken out by districts so you can find what areas of Salem are more apt to say something to the police and what areas are not?
That's a great question. The answer is no, but not because we're not interested in that data. When we develop these data sets and the surveys that produce them, we're really interested, believe it or not, in maximizing, balancing brevity and with maximizing information that we get. And it's not that information is not important, but the real question we get about geography is simply: do you live? Do you work? Do you spend time in Salem? And are you over 18? And if you clear those two hurdles, we establish kind of a general geography for you, and obviously your age. We do have bracketed for age groups, so different ages, but we don't really know unless someone writes in a free form response attesting to certain experiences or where they may live in Salem. We don't have a way in the survey to really know for sure if you live in West Salem versus Northeast Salem versus Lancaster.
Okay.
But there are other ways in which we get at that information. All of our reports, I think you may have joined a little bit after the beginning of the hour, but we had reports from SPD and from our staff that kind of generally locate people and what's going on in within that kind of Northeast, West, Southeast, Central Salem kind of praxis there. And so we do have some of that information, but not in the survey. And I invite any of you, and yourself included, Diane, in future planning sessions for the survey to come and have these conversations as we develop them, because it does, again, we balance continuity with change. The survey definitely has changed, certainly in my time, and I was a part of that, to get more granular, get more specific about things that we're interested in, and we also keep it the same so that we have kind of continuity of information. But that's a conversation we have every year as we kind of wind up for the survey. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, we have Joaquin. We have a question here in the room.
Hi.
Question in the room.
Thank you. A quick question. Well, maybe it's not quick. In the past, you said about 7 years that this information's been supplied to the city council. How have they utilized the information, or what are they looking for in the or in the data that they're looking at? How is that affecting their decisions, or how have you seen it affect their decisions in years past?
Thank you. I wear hearing aids and a little hard of hearing. If I heard you correctly, you asked how City Council has used this report in the past. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, different ways. So it's either, the question can either be interpreted as you presented it, which is how council acts with this information, or it can be considered under a different framework, which is what does the commission do with the report in terms of the policies that we ultimately give to council, and what do they do with those policy recommendations, which I think are kind of one and the same, but two sides of the same coin. In recent years, as recently as last year, councilors were pretty public about the data, helping them think through the question of keeping spaces like the library open and funded, and other community spaces. Some of what we've heard in previous surveys as recently as last year's was how much public third spaces like the library are a boon to community belonging and senses of attachment to community here in Salem, especially at the time it was reported for queer youth and the queer community, finding the public library in particular to be a source of community. Ditto for our elderly community in Salem, finding solace and belonging in places like Center 50 Plus, both of which were kind of on the chopping block during budgetary austerity, during obviously last fiscal year, but also this most recent fiscal year before the passage of the levy. And so counselors, several of them come to mind, made public references and invocations of the survey as helping inform their thought process. Similarly, several counselors have used this data, especially around people experiencing houselessness and their experiences to kind of think through policy decisions that they were making. And then we have used it in turn, and this was as I was coming on to the commission, to recommend policy changes to Salem Revised Code, which is our statutory obligations, our city laws, where about 4 years ago we changed to those laws to include housing as a protected class in Salem, which again at the top of the hour I had mentioned is a kind of an oddity among municipalities in the United States and really distinguishes Salem. And so that came from anecdotal data, but largely was rooted in the trends that we were seeing in this survey, and that was ultimately adopted by City Council. To give you a few.
That helps.
Okay. Any other questions? I appreciate the questions. I know we have a lot of new folks for whom this is uncharted waters. So. Okay. Well, with the time that we have left, I'm actually going to forego 4D and 4E, and I will invite people who have any comments on the community calendar to maybe provide those in member remarks and announcements at the end of the meeting if time allows, because I want to get to our committee updates before the hour runs out. And these can take some time. So I just want to ensure we have that time if there's no objection. Unless, Gretchen, did we have an update for 4D, the public conversation about citizenship? Not really.
I think the only update, Joaquin, and please correct me, is one consideration that we've thought about adapting the model to is making it fully virtual instead of in person. I think that's a consideration that some have considered. But otherwise, I believe we're planning on moving forward with reaching out to the partners and setting a date as per the sketch that was in everyone's attachment. So I think the only update might be a consideration of whether to move to fully virtual.
Yeah. Okay. So actually, thank you, Gretchen, for that. Maybe I'll spend 5 minutes talking about this just to so that we're all on the same page and we're not glossing over it. So I just finished saying that people were new, and then I just skipped over something that was important. And that doesn't make any sense. Briefly, for those who are newly initiated to the commission. And someone just asked about, what do we do with these survey data? Well, one thing that we have learned in the last couple surveys, and this year was not particularly different, was that especially among our indigenous migrant population here in the Salem area, reporting to police is low, trust in police is low, trust in government is low, and senses of belonging are low. And we wanted to really understand why that is. And in light of kind of maybe more tumultuous winds that do impact senses of belonging here locally, we wanted to host basically like what might be described as like a resource or a public conversation about, the city's role in enforcing federal immigration laws, promoting awareness of legal protections and resources that are available to folks here living in Oregon and in Salem, and just clarifying the commission's and the city's role in all of that, as it relates to reporting and access to resources. Gretchen is right. We talked recently, her and I and Robert, about maybe doing this virtually as opposed to in person, just to have a sense of security for attendance, and having it in English and in Spanish. So this will likely look like having one meeting in English, one conversation in English, and one in Spanish that is obviously online, but also recorded and posted like all of our other meetings are online, so that folks can play it back and listen to it at their own leisure and when the opportunity presents itself for them. And so, having community partners be a part of the conversation, having a Q&A where questions are solicited, beforehand, and then read and asked and posed to our partners at both the English language version and the Spanish language version are still all very much what we plan to do. Organizations, I'm seeing someone who Zoom in and out of them that came to mind included the Mano Mano Family Center, Legal Aid Services of Oregon, Salem for Refugees, Jenny's Legal Organization. Is that their actual name, Jenny's Legal Organization? Or simply, I don't remember. It is, right?
Not remembering the name of it. Isn't that terrible? This is clearly a draft.
Yeah. I feel like I forget what it's called, but it's not that. Oregon Law Center, the Salem Police Department, FHCO, Fair Housing Council of Oregon, faculty at Willamette, likewise Willamette's Immigration Clinic, as well as PECUN, which is the farm workers union here in Oregon. And 90-minute runtime, panelists, community attendees are welcome, of course, and Q&A at the end, as well as some drafted questions for them. So I guess the structure has changed, but the substance of it hasn't really changed. I think, things that we really want to be mindful of are just really being clear about it being a source of resources and information to folks, to stress that the city of Salem does not have unilateral authority or power over immigration questions, but that we are here to, of course, be a source of support and resource if discrimination is experienced and reported, and to really provide resources to folks in the community, both the nonprofit sector and the legal community, who are in a position to support our valued neighbors. And I think this is maybe as urgent as ever, because our most recent data out of Oregon is that Marion County, which is the lion's share of Salem, has the highest rates of deportations and targeting by ICE in Oregon. And so this is a particularly timely conversation, especially now that we're, how do I put it, really coming to see the landscape that we're entering now. I don't know who went first. Mas, go ahead.
I think it's a good idea to move to virtual, and I might be misunderstanding how you're describing it, but I've been in meetings where they have Spanish and English translation so everyone can understand everything at all of the time. Is there a reason we can't do that and just have one meeting?
We could do that. And this is kind of preliminary, but my logic with Gretchen and Robert was that, some of these organizations, though not all of them, are particularly serving migrant, Latino, and Indigenous communities, like PECUN and Mano Mano and OLC, less so. They're more of a working class law clinic, but they have a lot of specialized kind of law programs. And they're going to be really providing insights that relate to that community, and the community is going to want to really understand how things affect them, and they're going to want linguistically and culturally competent folks to be fielding questions and answering them. But then there are people who are recent arrivals, who are immigrants, who may feel uncertain about their status and their future, who are refugees, who for which English isn't their second language, but Spanish isn't their language either. And so, and they may want to have a kind of an English only resource fair that runs very similar along the lines of the other one, but that is kind of more general. And that might be that the value or the need rather for that may be high enough so as to merit two different conversations. I'm open to that being different, but that was at least for me the rationale behind that.
I would push back on that a little bit and say that in this situation, there's no bad information. Like, even if the person speaking is talking about oops, so sorry. Even if the presenter is talking about a specialized community, it will still largely apply to other communities, especially when it comes to immigration. I mean, I know when I used to work in immigration law firms, the difference in culture was in how the person perceived it, but not in how the legal authority dealt with them. And so I think that having one event will help foster the sense of community we're trying to foster, and it will also make attendance easier. And I just think that separating it and saying that this is a Spanish only one might be more exclusionary than it needs to be, when there might be more valuable information for everyone, even if it's culturally specific.
That's fair. I will say the intention was to have it in Spanish. So as opposed to English and translate into Spanish. And the only challenge that I can see with that, of course, I'm open to changing that, would be there are some panelists who don't speak Spanish. And so which is fine. I'm happy to toggle back and forth between English and Spanish. But that would be additionally challenging, especially because there are some reps who don't speak English.
Yeah, so that's what I meant about having the virtual translation. Is I've been in Zoom meetings where I'm the only person speaking English and everyone else is speaking another language, and the translator is able to translate in real time in your language. You just select it. So when you log in the translation button, you would just select Spanish, and then you would hear everything said in Spanish, or you would just select English and then you would hear everything said in English. It's just like a really cool feature of Zoom, and that way everyone can be included and everyone can hear it in the language that they need.
Okay. I will defer to Gretchen about what technical abilities we have to do that and to broadcast it. But I think the point is well taken. Thank you. Commissioner Murray.
Is the Jenny's legal organization, is that Baraka Immigration Legal Services?
I thought I had house in the name, Gretchen.
I thought I'd had, well, Ariana's house is
Oh, that's a different one.
a different organization. And there was a new organization formed specifically to provide legal services. And what you just described might be right, Kelsey. It's not ringing a bell for me, but it's been a while since I've seen the name. But obviously need to get that corrected. Been sitting like that for a while on this document.
The other benefit is, we're trying to wrangle a lot of folks into one time, and so the virtual modality allows for more flexibility there. And so we don't have a date yet, but hopefully we'll have that before too long. Well, I appreciate entertaining that, and I'm sorry that we're shorter on time now than we were before, but I think that was an important conversation to have. Any other comments or questions about that item? Okay. Hearing none, let's do it. Community, is there any community calendar stuff, Gretchen? I know Hope is no longer with us, unfortunately.
There is not. And I don't know if there's anyone interested in picking up that role. In the past, one of our commission members would identify events of potential interest or participation and prepare a written update as well as highlight some elements here. And so we can share that now and then just see if folks are interested in volunteering. I can always share out her format as an example.
No pressure. Well, we kind of organically fill in the calendar anyways, usually at the end of the meeting. But yeah, I would appreciate if somebody could volunteer for that. Hope I did that dutifully for several years. And she's gone on to greener pastures, going to school, get her undergrad. Okay, community updates. Robert, you want to get us started here with the Community Engagement Committee?
I would love to. So the last Community Engagement Committee, we met and we largely worked on the community belonging report that will be presented to council. So we already saw that, so no need to dive too deep into that. Something else that we've been working on as part of this community engagement committee was a data visualization. We collect a lot of really great data through this community belonging survey, as well as just being able to kind of take some of those complaints of discrimination, not necessarily, like location or, like the content of it, but to just be able to kind of present real-time transparency that, that reports of discrimination do happen in Salem, and various ways that we might be able to transparently share that with the community. Regrettably, I was hoping to work with Gretchen to schedule a meeting. It largely lived within this committee, but there are a lot of folks on city staff that would be interested in providing a lot of help, particularly the city's GIS specialist, as well as the city's communications team that could really help us with this. So we opted to kind of form a smaller committee, just so we could, really meet, not a smaller committee, but a task force, so to speak, so we could meet, during those normal business hours when the staff typically works, so that we can get it out. So I will make sure that I get with Gretchen right after this to get the first meeting on the book, so we can hopefully present something in terms of where we're at with that task force. But that's all I have. Chair Laura Metcalf.
Thank you. Any questions for Vice Chair Marshall? Well, the Disability Rights Task Force is my update. I was trying just now to look for one of our presenters' name, and I can't find it. But we had Eunice Kim, and I'm sorry, Gretchen, who was the other person from planning?
Oh my gosh, I also can't recall.
Oh no, not to put you on the spot, Gretchen. That's okay. Well, we had two wonderful presenters return from planning in the case of Eunice's case, and talk to us about the HPS, the housing production strategy that's afoot here at the city, and finding regulations, and we even had a conversation about incentivization for more moving developers towards universal design and accessibility when it comes to housing. In this case, it was about not housing generally, but particularly around kind of cluster housing or cottage housing, or not exactly infill housing, but making the most of empty space, filling it with housing, and how do we ensure that those new spaces are which are more compact, et cetera, are still accessible to folks. And they had a really good list of considerations and things that they really wanted to push developers to adopt as part of their practices. And we won't take maybe all the credit for it, but it definitely came, I think, from conversations that we had with Eunice that really had her focus on that. And she came back with these ideas that I think were well received by the task force. And we really had a conversation that, again, transitioned into how do we, so asking for this is one thing, but how do we maybe not mandate it, though that's a conversation too, but at least incentivize it among developers to ensure that all new construction is accessible and accommodates as many needs as possible, and is welcoming to as many folks as possible in Salem. And we even talked about some grant programs and stuff that might be under consideration, though those are all far off. So I think we had an overall robust conversation, and this is the most recent of several conversations where we're meeting with experts and hearing back from them, as well as community members, about disability and their experience of disability and access in Salem. And again, it will culminate in these recommendations. And now we have an intern who will help us with that as well, which I'm very grateful for. Maybe my only other update will be to say that we have our next big community engagement forum, which is on this 15th, Monday.
That's correct. And it's open to the public, Monday, September 15th, held at Center 50 Plus. And it's a listening session, a wonderful opportunity to hear from people and to share their experiences living with disabilities in Salem and what ideas they have to improve it. We're also going to do a more specific conversation specifically with neurodiverse inclusive solutions on the evening of Wednesday, September 17th. Also, we have a third that we're confirming the date on right now, but we anticipate it'll be in October in partnership with ROCC, the Resource Outreach Recovery Center. And so we're anticipating a conversation over there as well. So 3 listening sessions coming up in the next few weeks.
Thank you, Gretchen. And, you know, if you're not a task force member, you're of course welcome to come to those. I would say for anybody, but especially the new commission members who would like to meet the community and more, and to hear from folks about what they're experiencing on this particular issue, are welcome to join those. All right, that's all for me, unless there are any questions, and if not, I'll pass it over to Kira.
All right. Well, thank you, Chair Laura Midkiff. So for the LGBTQIA plus committee, we welcomed a couple new members. So we have Rebecca Ark and Kat Andrews. So we're very excited about that. We also discussed pushing back our healthcare forum. For those of you who are new, the committee has been working on a healthcare forum that would address healthcare within the LGBTQIA plus community and provide kind of a platform for a conversation between healthcare providers and people in the community to talk about disparities and issues that they've faced. So that we've been working on for quite some time, and we actually decided to push it back to the new year just based on capacity, and we'd like to focus our time on the upcoming Transgender Day of Remembrance. So speaking of that, we are going to start working on that, which includes reaching out to some community partners this round to see if they would like to assist us or take part in it. We'll still hold the reins and make it happen, just like we did last year and the year before that and the year before that. So we're excited, though, for this year's. And then lastly, just kind of a reminder for those of you who are available, Pride in the Park is coming up on September 20th, and HRC, the committee itself, will be tabling, and we'd love to get y'all out there to talk to the community. I will be out there, but not at our table, unfortunately. I will be at Chariots talking about the very cool Pride bus that's going to come out. And I think that's all I have. If you don't have the sign up, Gretchen has it. I'm sure she would be happy to send it to you. But we'd love for y'all to come out. So thank you.
Thank you, Kira. Any questions for Kira and her update and the work of the committee? Okay. Gretchen, staff updates.
Thank you. Yes, I wanted to share one personal one. I am in the process now of welcoming Chris, my colleague, Chris Snyder, into the fold in All Things Human Rights Commission. I have some new duties that some of you remember I received last winter that relate to our community services department. And as I continue to work in those duties, I want to make sure that everything is getting due attention. And I'm really lucky to have some of Chris's time to help. And so we're going to be welcoming or transitioning Chris into the role of being a liaison with the Human Rights Commission. I'll still be on Chris's team and so be able to connect and be available and all of that. But Chris comes with over, I think, 15 years of experience being a liaison to a city board. He's with our Cultural and Tourism Promotion Advisory Board and has worked with a really diverse array of community partners and stakeholders and members of the public over the years. And so I know you'll be in good hands, but I wanted to update that, and I'll take all the time appropriate to ensure a smooth and successful transition during these next few months. And I'm not going anywhere. I'm still at the city, of course, but just wanted to explain that. I also just wanted to give a quick update and appreciate Vice Chair Marshall and Commissioner Murray for joining me yesterday in a conversation with a number of community members related to the event known as Salem Speaks Up. There's traditionally been an event in Salem for decades that honors Human Rights Day on December 10th, and we're in talks about what that could look like this year and who will take the lead on that. So I just wanted to appreciate them and say stay tuned. We'll probably be back with an update next month on that. Thank you.
So that's pretty big news from Gretchen. You know, for those who haven't been on the commission long or who are just joining us, if my earlier comments today were not an indication enough, Gretchen is a blessing both to this commission and to the city and to the public. And so we want to, of course, and I hope you do, join me in congratulating her on her expanded role, where hopefully she will do even more good, though one questions how that's possible. And we do really want to welcome Chris as this transition takes place and into the fold here and the work of the commission, and I'm grateful for his experience and know that no one is too far out of reach here. Gretchen will be around and Chris is already joining us. I think I heard Gretchen say that Chris is joining us tonight. And so grateful for that. And he's come to at least one other meeting that I'm aware of a task force. And so just appreciate him and looking forward, he and I have not met, but looking forward to meeting with him and getting to know him and talking with him. Just really, there'll be more to say, I'm sure, on all of our ends to thank Gretchen and to welcome Chris, but just wanted to acknowledge that Gretchen's been with us in this role. How many, 12 years, 12 and a half years, Gretchen?
Yeah, thank you. I started with the Human Rights Commission on February 1st of 2013. So I'm coming up on year 13. And actually, Chris is at the mic. If you don't mind, he'd love to say hi.
Please.
Thanks, Joaquin, for the kind words. Greetings, everyone. Yes, I've been sitting here listening to the whole meeting, the whole time. And yes, this will be a new transition. This is additional duties as assigned, as most of our staff liaisons are. I have been chairing or staffing the Cultural and Tourism Promotion Advisory Board for, not quite 15 years, but I've been with the city next in 3 days. I've been 15 years now. So, but I've been doing it since 2011. So I've got a little bit of a history with the staff liaisons. So I look forward to this additional board or this additional commission coming on board and getting familiarized with everything human rights related. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And, it maybe is worth noting too that Chris, my understanding from Gretchen is that Chris has already been fielding questions from the public and engaging with them. So that's as good as education as you can get, I think, in this new role. And just really look forward to working with him and to see what direction we go in now. So thank you, Gretchen, and thank you, Chris, very much for your service. Any member remarks and announcements here at the close of our meeting? Somehow we're ahead of schedule.
Joaquin, this is Gretchen. I think there's a typo on the agenda. because it says the next meeting is October 22nd, and that can't be true because we meet on the second Wednesday of the month. So that's wrong. So I just wanted to flag that for anyone reading that literally. I'll get that corrected, but we will meet the second Wednesday of October.
So that would be the 8th.
Yes.
From somebody? Thank you. Yeah, it's the that's what I have on my Google Calendar. If it means anything to anybody. Thank you, Gretchen, for pointing that out. So October 8th. Any other comments? I have a comment. I wasn't going to make this comment. Say I didn't know what to say, and I don't know if I know anything yet. But I have been very disturbed by the assassination of Charlie Kirk today, and Mr. Kirk and I share. I would likely say nothing in common politically, but his assassination is antithetical to what I hope the values of the United States are, and political discourse within it. And we often hear, or at least I do, in commission leadership from folks in the public that feel that the commission has a certain bent or a certain lean or a certain whatever. And I really just want to take this opportunity to say very publicly and specifically that that sort of behavior isn't the right word, but this sort of approach to political disagreement is unacceptable, and total violation of everything that we value here as a commission, and I hope we value as an American society that works to better itself and move forward. And I just think it's incumbent upon those of us in a public position, small or large, to say that. And so my thoughts are with Mr. Kirk's family, and if nothing else, I hope that we all recommit to doing better moving forward. All right. Any other comments? Go ahead, Christina.
Thank you for bringing that up, actually. I think it is important as a public body that we acknowledge that political violence is never okay. We've seen a lot of it in recent years. There was a plot to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer. There was the storming of the Capitol and pipe bombs left at the RNC and DNC in DC. There was a break-in to kidnap Nancy Pelosi and the brutal attack of her husband. More recently, there was the assassination of Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband in the shooting of a state senator and his wife there. There was the assassination of the United Healthcare CEO, and now the event today. Political violence quite often is contagious, and it's spreading, and it's not confined to one side of the aisle or the other, one belief system or another. And it is terrifying that this is happening. In a free society, we should not fear especially in America, especially in a country that celebrates our freedom of speech and our democracy, our system of democracy so much that we shouldn't fear this great privilege that we have to participate in our own democracy. But that's what political violence is meant to do. It's meant to suppress. That's meant to make people fear. And I think it's important to take that into consideration and try to stay strong regardless. If we succumb to the fear, we are letting the people who want to suppress everything that is good about the country win. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Any other comments here at the end of the hour? Well, with that, I thank you all for your time. And I again welcome our new members, and thank you, Chris, for joining us in this new role. And to our interns, I look forward to working with you, and thank you in advance for all of your support of the work of this commission and its bodies. And it's 7:48, and I hope you all have a good evening. Thank you.